Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to take a look at a family racing game by the name of Crazy Race. This game is put out by Ravensburger in Germany, designed by Alessandro Zucchini. The game is for ages 8 and up. It says it plays, like I said, 2 to 5 players in about 30 to 60 minutes. I'd say 30 to 45 is more realistic. I should note that the game does not have an official English translation, and there is some English text in the game. I did, however, create my own English translation for it. I'll put that on Board Game Geek, and I'll also put a link to that file in the show notes. There might be a small error in my translation. If I notice anything, I'll update that file, but I think the game is relatively straightforward. It is a race game where players are going to be playing a number of lions who are trying to escape the zoo. So each player is going to get a little car like this and a little wooden cart. And the catch is that these lions don't know how to drive, so they're going to enlist various animals to help pull their cart along throughout the zoo. So players want to basically be at the end of the game, which is triggered when a player gets past the finish line, the player who has traveled the farthest. It's a pretty simple game. I'll take a few minutes to show you how the game plays, and then I'll come back and let you know what I think about it. So here we have the board for Crazy Race, and this is a game for 2 to 5 players in which players are going to be controlling these cars here, moving along the racetrack, and they want to be the person who's the furthest along at the end of the turn when one of these players crosses this finish line. So at the start of the game, each player is going to get a few things. They'll get one of these little cards which shows their lion. Each player is controlling a lion who's trying to escape a zoo in a car. And they'll also get one of these donkey tiles, which will show them a starting field. So this player will start on the first base. It will also show 2 other things. This is going to be the character's limit, which I'll explain in a moment, and this will be its bonus points down here. So every card has a limit and a bonus points on it. So this card, I guess thematically what is going on is these lions are trying to escape the zoo. They don't know how to drive, however, so they're enlisting a series of animals to pull their little golf carts for them so they could be the first to escape the zoo. But each one of these cards also has on it, you can see here, a cheat sheet that shows you the distribution of the dice. So you can see that this die here only goes from 0 to 1 to 2, while this one here, it has a blank side, but it also has a value of 6. And it helpfully tells you the average value of each of these various colored dice. And that's going to matter a lot, because in this game, what you're going to do is, first of all, you'll set up by placing each player's pawn on one of these spaces based on what start field they have on their donkey tile. So this player gets a 1, this player gets a 2, and this player gets a 4. So this player starts a little further back, but he has a higher limit. So these are balanced. And then you will also, this is a modular board. It has some sections here that pull out, and you just randomly assign these spaces here and all the way around the edge. These are all modular pieces. So the game board will be different each time you play. And then you'll take this set of dice, put these in the middle, and then on these spaces here, you will put these palm trees, which mark the end of each leg. The game's race is played over 5 legs, and at the end of each leg, the animal driving your car is going to be shifted out. So all that you do on your turn is pretty simple. This is a push your luck game, and what you're going to determine is how far you want to try to go. So we'll start with the player in the front, and they will then take a number of dice of their choosing and place them on the spaces where they want to go. So let's say this player thinks that they could get away with going 4 spaces, right? So they would put dice on each of those 4 spaces, and then they would take those dice and roll them. And now, what they have to do in order to successfully move is when they roll these dice, they have to be under or at 7. So this player here, he's rolling these 4 dice here, and you can see that the averages of those, there's a 1, a 1.5, a 2, and a 2.5. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6. So this player hopefully will make it, and we'll just roll. And the total here is only 2, so they're under their limit, so they'll be able to proceed 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces because they've rolled 4 dice. So it's all or nothing. Essentially, when you're rolling, you're going to be determining whether you're able to move the full distance or not. If this player had rolled, and let's just say they rolled an 8, they would bust, and they would only get to move one space. So you will always get to move one space. That would be 4 spaces here. So this player started here, they would move here if they busted, but since they succeeded, they move from here 1, 2, 3, 4, one space for each die. So that is essentially how the game works at its core. And now it would be this player's turn, and then it would be this player's turn. And they would do the same thing. So let's say this player moves to here, and then maybe this player moves to here. And then it would just come back to the first player. And since nobody's crossed one of these palm trees again yet, the same round would happen. So this player, let's say they move all the way up to here. Now they've crossed the palm tree, but you'll finish out the round. So this player might move here, and let's say this player busts and goes here. So now that a player has crossed the palm tree, what you're going to do is you're going to assign new animal tiles. So you'll lay these out at the start of the race in front of the first palm tree. And after these get taken, you'll lay the next set out in front of the second palm tree, and so on. But whoever is in last, and this is a bit of a catch-up mechanism, is now going to pick which one of these animal tiles they would want to have draw their card. So this would be the red player. They would get to pick one of these. So this one here, he has a limit that could go all the way up to 9, so he could presumably roll more dice. This polar bear, his limit is only 5, but a special power here, which unfortunately there's written in German. This one here, he could turn any die face to a 1. And this guy, he has a limit of 7, but he would be able to re-roll the dice. So you would be able to pick one of these. And you'd also want to consider here the number that's in the bottom corner. So generally speaking, if there's a stronger power, so this guy has a pretty strong power, he'll have either a lower limit or he'll have a lower number here as a bonus. So this guy doesn't have a bonus at all. Whereas this guy here, who has a relatively weak power, has a high bonus. So let's just say that this player wants this 9. He would take this here. He would put his donkey face down like that. And that would be kept till the end of the game. I'll explain why in a moment. And now for the next leg of the race, which basically is until another player, or any player, including this player, crosses this line, he's going to have this limit card in effect. So this player would do the same thing because they're in second place. Let's just say they take this. And then the player who's leading gets the leftover. So you can see that over the course of the game, you're going to be changing out the rules for your cart. So now, after this has happened, the first player would get the start player token, whoever's furthest ahead, which is still this player here, the white player. And now you would do a new round, and it would simply go with players taking turns rolling the dice until a player got past here. So now this player here, they could only have a limit of 5, but they are able to turn any number into 1. So they might, for example, go here. They think they could do this. They think they could do this. And since they have this power, maybe they'll push their luck there. They would roll these dice. Unfortunately, they busted even if they would turn that to a 1. So they would have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is over their limit of 5. They would just go one space. And so play will just continue like this. And then, after the players make it past here, they'll get another animal. You'll have, again, 3 more animals set out here. And then you'll resort those, And over the course of the game, you're going to be collecting a total of 5 different animals. So the game's going to keep going until, you're in your last lap. And let's say this is the last lap. And as soon as one player crosses this line, you'll finish out the turn, so players will get an equal number of times rolling the dice. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be essentially those bonuses are going to be applied. So each player at this point is going to have 5 tiles, and you're going to apply those 5 tiles. So one at a time, players are going to play one of their animals that they've had during the game, and then apply the bonus number, which in this case would be 2, to their figure. So this player would move up 1, 2. Now this player would reveal a tile. He has a 1, so he would go like this. Now she might go, reveal her tile, and she has a 1. So this will go until all players have played all 5 of their tiles. Let's say this. This one doesn't have any bonus, and this one here has a 1, 2. And then after all players have done that, whoever is the furthest ahead would be the winner. So, I just want to explain, I guess, some of the other powers. So, let's see. So, basically, there are ones that let you re-roll dice. There are ones that let you, instead of, so this one, for example, any die that you roll has a maximum value of 2. There are this one here, this hyena. If somebody else busts, you get to move forward whenever another player busts. So if you're playing with 5 players, that could be very powerful. This guy here, his limit's normally 7, but if you're in last place, it goes up to 10. So some of these have really conditional uses. This one here, you just take one of each of the die colors and roll them, and you just move that total number. So you would just, for example, do this, roll that, and you would go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 spaces forward, so that could be very powerful, especially if you're in behind. And like I said, there's just various powers that all the different characters have. Some of them are more clever than others. Some of them just let you manipulate the dice, and some of them just let you essentially take on more dice. But in general, I think they seem pretty balanced, and they make it so that you can't have any single dominant strategy. And it functions both as a catch-up mechanism with the players use it, whoever's furthest behind, using it to catch back up to the start player because they have a better power, and it also becomes a strategic decision because you want to consider that bonus number because that's going to be appended onto your total at the end of the race. So that is basically how you play Crazy Race. Okay, so that is Crazy Race, and it is, I think, a pretty terrific little family game. It has push your luck elements in it. And I think, unlike some racing games, the way it's designed, you'll always feel like you have a chance because you're going to be changing out your animals. People who are in the lead are going to get worse animals, and if you're in the back, you'll get better animals. It makes you feel involved the whole game. Ultimately, it is just a push your luck dice game. You don't have any ultimate control over those dice, but you can pick how many you roll, and so there is some risk management in that decision. I think that the game, for what it is, works very well. I should note that there is a 2-player variant, which plays slightly differently. So in the 2-player variant, you essentially do not reveal the 2 animal tiles until somebody has crossed, the end of the leg. And then you'll add one based on how far back the second player is. And whoever's in the last place gets to assign their tile and also assign the tile to the leader. So it's slightly different than with the more players, but it works very well. We played this game with more than 2 players, and we played it with 2 players. Both seem to work well. I think the more players that you have, the better, especially because some of the animal powers, there's, for example, a buffalo that lets you skip over other occupied spaces. Those function better with more players. So I would say, the more the merrier. It's almost a shame that this caps out at 5 because it's a terrific game that I think has almost like a party atmosphere. It's exciting seeing people attempt really impossible dice rolls and then make it. The game is pretty original. It does remind me of a game that I have from many years ago by the name of Magical Athlete, and this similarly had players drafting a number of athlete cards that they would be using essentially to run a series of races, so it's similar to that. But this one, I think, this tops Magical Athlete. I think that I'd rarely play Magical Athlete now they have this. Although Magical Athlete has some zanier card powers, it was a game that I found a little bit fiddly and a little bit longer than it should last. It says on the box here that it lasts from 60 to 90 minutes. This you could play in about half that time. So I think that this is, friendlier game. It's more colorful, better components, and Magical Athlete, I've held on now for 15 years or so. I've held on to that game, and I think that this is finally the race game that scratches the same itch as that game, and that was a really fun game. But I think that this is a firm replacement for that. So it's unfortunate at this point that there's not an English version. I think that this is a game that could be successful in the U.S. I know that Ravensburger has been increasingly good about bringing their games over to the U.S. I hope that they do that. And it is unfortunate that the tiles have German language printed on them. Again, I did do a rules translation, and you would be able to use it as a reference sheet. There's nothing too complex on any of those tiles, and you would be able to explain what they all do to any players at the table, but it's just less than ideal for something that is a family game for it not to be in English. So that's my prime reservation for what is otherwise a fun, well-designed little race game. So those are my thoughts on Crazy Race, and thanks for watching.